Welcome back to Simply 1% with Wendolyn and with Meredith. We're so glad to have you here. Today we're going to talk about complaining and the victim mentality. I'm sure this is something that we all have experienced in ourselves or with other people. Have you ever been sick of yourself because you keep saying the same thing and you want something to change and you just don't know what to do, or you catch yourself and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to stop? Or you're around somebody who complains so much and you're wondering, where is the point where I listen and I am empathetic or sympathetic to this? And when is it that I can pull out of this situation? Or am I enabling? All of these are really good questions that we both talk about with our clients all the time. It's important to know when we are in that role, when we are playing the role of a victim, and also how it's affecting others. So I heard a story this week and it reminded me of many situations that I have been in. So I wrote Wendolyn and I said, I think this is the title of our podcast this week. Sometimes you just have to take your pants off. That's all I said.
Yeah, I shared that with my husband, Joe, and he's like, yeah, you do.
He could not wait. He cannot wait to listen to this podcast. So it got me thinking of how many times I've been in an uncomfortable situation, especially with a tag on a pair of pants, or it's a really hot day and I don't have air conditioning. So what I do is you just got to take them off, right? Like, just, I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm by myself, or I'm have to go to the store and buy something else. Whatever I need to do, I have to take charge of it. I'm not going to complain. I chose to be in this hot place, right? There's things that I have to sacrifice. And that might be one of them. I just don't get to wear pants. I don't know.
I like that you're like, I'm alone. Meredith, we've been on the phone. I mean, you and I, we do everything.
No, it's
I
true.
mean, I know what's happening. Yeah, I know what's happening. She's like, I'm hot. And she gets up. I'm like, she's taking them off. She's taking them off.
I just think we're giving our listeners a little bit too much of an image, but well, you might run into me one day. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so true.
Everybody does
Yeah.
it. We don't have to get vulgar about it, but listen, there are
No.
times Meredith's like, I'm hot, and she gets up. I'm like, she's taking them off. That's fine.
Because sometimes you just have to take your pants off.
And you don't complain about it. You just have a statement. I'm hot. And then you take care of it.
Well,
if
I don't
you
even
were
say
whiny,
that.
no, well, sometimes it just is what it is. But we're close. We're like sisters. We are family. Hey, yeah, yeah. Come on, take your pants off with me. We are
So true.
family. Da-na-na-na-na-na. Come and take your pants off with me.
With me.
With me.
Well, that might be a different sort of invitation. So calm yourselves.
Well, we're raw dogging it through life, so it doesn't really matter at this point. If you've listened to the other podcasts and you don't understand this conversation, you've not heard a single word we've said. So,
no. And we're sorry if you're starting with this one. We just said raw dogging and taking pants off, like in the same 30 seconds.
Well, that's what it is.
It's fine. You understand us. But let's tell our listeners where we're going with how we're moving. How this goes into what we're discussing this week.
It's a lighthearted way to get into it, but it is. It's about victim mentality. So Meredith can sit there and say, oh, I'm so hot. I just can't handle it. And I have to be on the other end of it, hearing about how hot she is all the time.
Why is it so hot? Why can't it just be like 75 degrees all the time? What?
Right. Well, you chose to live in this place and you don't have central AC. And you know that you get hot very easily. You decided to do that. So instead of complaining and playing the victim, you're like, okay, I'm going to take them off. I'm going to take the pants off. Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost a daily occurrence, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, so it's just a lighthearted way to get into this where we're going to talk about victim mentality.
Oh, we definitely are. Changing the circumstances instead of complaining, changing the circumstances in discomfort, changing your perspective when you know the situation around you is not going to change. That person is not going to change unless they want to. So this is just the lighthearted way to get into this conversation today. And I had to share it, Wendolyn. I just felt it went really well with this topic today.
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, and listen, it's not that we're pointing fingers, because we can point them right back out at ourselves, right? So
I mean, Wendolyn, let's just share a little bit with our listeners about what we go through on a weekly, daily basis putting this together. With two ADD girls and those who are very impatient with technology and just want it to work, we have had to pivot. We have had to sing. We've had to encourage each other. We've had to be like, oh, we're going to do this. Like we have had to figure out a way to do it. And we're not complaining. We're not complaining about the technology. We're not complaining about how, oh, we wish that we knew how to do this. If I would have learned this 5 years ago, or even when we started this, how many years have people told us, Meredith, Wendolyn, you have got to start this. We're not beating ourselves up about it, right? But, it's easy to do. It's easy to do. And we're moving through this, right? We choose.
We are not tech savvy. I mean, yesterday I left Meredith like 4 messages of me just singing, because it was like, I think we need to just sing through it because we feel crazy. And like, it literally, like, I just sent her messages of me singing. Yeah. Because we felt like we were going to go crazy. Oh, but absolutely. It's that, or we just complain. It has to be a perspective shift. And people are going through a lot worse than me, like just a lot worse. This is not the end of the world. And I've had victim mentality where I've just been sick of myself. I'm like, ugh. I feel like all I've been doing is like complaining and whining. Ugh. And I hate whining. You want to know what pisses me off in my house with my children? They'll tell you. I remember my son came home from school and they were like, Mom, this kid was whining so much in school. And I told him, my mom would not put up with that. You are correct, son. I would not put up with that. I don't like whining. I think it's gross. I think it's disgusting. Now, you can have a hard day and you can talk about it without whining. I can handle that. But whining, I don't tolerate. And adults do it. They may not have the voice when they're doing it. I mean, I've heard that too. But I have heard that as well. But the whining, I feel like you'll just dive into this victim mentality. And I hate victim mentality, even though I have been there myself. And, if you ask my children about victim mentality, they'll tell you one thing that they've heard over and over and over and over again. They'll be like, Mom, we know. But you know what? They remember it. And I'm like, stop playing the victim. I'm big on, like Meredith talks about, ownership. If it is your fault, state that it is your fault. We're not pointing the fingers. We're not making excuses. We're not having victim mentality. We're not having victim mentality. I'm not doing it. And so they'll repeat back to me. I'm always like, what's full of victims? They're like, we know, Mom, prison. I'm like, that's right. Like, prison is full of victims.
They're all victims. They're all
right.
Victims
it's, I didn't do it, or I was raised in a bad environment. It was my friend. I just got caught up. It's never ownership.
And look, it is true for some. We know, we've seen that. However, those who are said, I wasn't the one to do it, but I ended up here because somebody else did it. There's still ownership in that. You unfortunately were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And maybe you didn't know. Maybe there were signs. And then there's a time in that where you just say, well, I am here because of this situation and it's awful. And I'm going to do what I can here. I can't imagine that environment. I mean, no. for those who are there for the smallest crimes to the, things that we don't want to think about. However, that environment is the worst thing that I can think of. But I also believe that sometimes we live in prisons in our own home. We do. And also in our own bodies and minds. When I work with couples, it is amazing to me that most of the work, like we talk about, is ownership. I really, truly believe until you can get to that point of ownership, you are very susceptible to living in your own victimhood and also living in your partner's victimhood as well. So you and I talk about this as, when is the point of enabling? When we're enabling a victim or the complaining, even with our clients, there's a lot of talk out there about talk therapy, how a client will come in and they're saying the same thing over and over again. What is it for? Am I really processing something? Is this a processing point? How do I know when something is shifting and changing and growing? Well, like I just said, how do we measure that, right? It's changing and growing and moving. We always measure it in frequency and severity. So when we talk about 1% shifts, this is a lot of where it comes from, right? I could date terrible people that are not good for me. They're not terrible people, but people who are not good for me, right? And I could have this pattern. But in the 1%, I recognize that maybe I'm dating 8 of those 10 things that were not good for me instead of 10 out of 10. That is the point where it's not complaining, it's movement. It's less, it's less, let's say, severe. There's just a way that we have to measure this, I've learned, especially with clients. And they do really like it when you call them out in reflection. We've been talking about this for maybe 3 sessions now, and I keep on hearing the same thing. And I'm wondering how you feel about this. Is this something that you would like to change? We have learned that as much as we want another person to change, our boss, our friend, a family member, our partner, we don't have any control over that. And that is a message that we talk about so often, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And let's be clear. We are talking about people in a victim mentality, not people who are victims, right? So you can be a victim of something. We're talking about a state of mind.
Yes.
We are talking about a state of
Important
mind.
to
We are
say.
not talking about someone who is a victim of something.
And I do want to say, the listeners, that we're not talking about abusive relationships. We're not talking
No.
about those types of relationships. We're talking about situations that you can control and you can change your perspective.
Because I know people who have been victims of horrible things, but they don't live in a victim mentality. They know that they have to move past things and grow, like you were talking about movement. So I want to be clear, you can be victim of something, but there is a difference between victim mentality, a constant state of this, especially we've seen it. And I've seen where victim mentality, it just saturates their whole life. So they're not just a victim at home, they're a victim at work, they're a victim of their childhood, they're a victim of everything. My son struggled with this. He's that firstborn. He had the tendency for perfection, right? He wanted to make sure that he got everything perfect. So what would happen is he wouldn't take ownership of things, because then that meant he wasn't perfect. So I had to start at the ground level and look at, okay, that's just a symptom of you not understanding grace. You don't understand that I love you in spite of. So you're going to, I have to be perfect in order to be loved. And so we really had to start there. He started understanding. So at that point, then we started talking about, okay, you can't go blaming other people for things. From there, we started talking about what happens when someone has victim mentality and won't take ownership. Their relationships reflect that. Quality people really don't want to have deep relationships with people who don't take ownership.
In a relationship of any kind, a relationship can be with your work, with a friend, with your family. We're not only talking about romantic relationships here. This comes in all areas of life. Living in the victimhood and the complaining and poor me doesn't do anybody any good. If you do not take ownership, there will be no transformation. End of story.
Yeah. And I mean, as humans too, like we're just like, okay, who can I blame? That's not me. Right.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's our thing where it's like, oh no, I need to blame someone else. And I'm not about victim mentality. I am not about the whining. I am not. In my home, we're very, I would even say strict about that, because ownership is really important because it shows integrity. And when you can say I was wrong in a situation, or I could have done things better, or this is the decision that I'm making and I'm going to sit in it, when you can do those things, your relationships really do reflect that, because you want relationships with people who are willing to say, I'm sorry, or it is my fault, when it is their fault.
Yeah.
And so we are very purposeful about saying, okay, did I play a part in this? And I've heard you say that, Meredith, with couples. Okay, this happened, and it really does look like it's completely the fault of the other person. But I've heard you ask people, what role did you play in this? And this person's supposedly innocent in the whole thing. And you do ask them, what role did you play in it? And maybe at first they can be like, what do you mean? But eventually it does come around where they go, well, I did do this.
Or I held this in. I've held this in for a long time and I needed to bring it up sooner. So, or the vulnerability feels too overwhelming. These are not excuses. These are ways to reflect on how did it get here. And yet, the ownership doesn't have to be something you did wrong. It doesn't have to be something you did wrong, right? Doesn't have to be something that's immoral. It can just be, that day I I was running at 20% energy. It's not necessarily wrong, and it's not even wrong that you didn't communicate it. It's now I see. Yeah, maybe I would have responded to that a little bit in a more like appropriate way or kinder way had I taken the time to recognize this, or even to see that you might be running at a 10%. And I didn't even ask. I didn't check in because this isn't your normal behavior, right? In relationships, this is mostly not your quote unquote normal behavior. And there's something coming at me. So many times what happens is we don't go to the vulnerable spot and we need to go to the curious place. Why, what's going on? Right? Because a lot of times we believe that they're trying to put something on us that, again, not our fault. We are fearful that they see us in a certain way. And that, I think that does come back to victimhood, where if it continues to be me, right, and I'm really wanting to get out of this relationship, I can continue to say, oh, they don't see their part in it. They yelled at me. They don't see their part in it, right? While if I just ask the question and curiosity is like, well, this isn't usually how it goes. How are you doing? Let's just check in. Or do you realize how you said that? Let's talk about what comes out of communication in a relationship when one or both of you taking the role of victim. What happens? We feel criticized. We become defensive. We get quiet. We fight. There are many ways that we react instead of respond, because a lot of times fear, the unresolved, right? I have to recognize that I didn't respond well to that. I mean, I didn't react well to that. Whatever the reason is, it could be very valid. But if I don't take ownership of the fact that I did react in that way and it was not helpful for our repair, I have to do that. And if that continues to happen, where I am the one who continues to take ownership, I am the one who's seeing myself in this way, I don't want to be the victim. I want to be on the opposite side of victimhood. And my partner constantly wants to live in victim. This is a good question. When you get to that place where you feel like maybe that's enabling because you continue to take ownership and your partner is not, and there's no reciprocity there, we're not a team. We're not coming to a resolution together. And if that continues to happen, you're going to feel a certain way about that. And it is hard to come out of that. It's sad.
Mm.
It doesn't feel good. You feel lonely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And we have to do the hard things sometimes. Well, let's
Mm.
look at what our options are. Again, I can stay in this, continue to do the same thing. I I can pray that my spouse becomes, sees the error of their ways. I could insist that my partner goes to individual therapy, works on themselves, so I'm not the one that feels like they have to change them. Right? There are many different options.
Mm.
So, what is my ownership in a situation like that? I'm choosing to stay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing to live in this way. So, again, there's no complaint there. It's like, well,
Mm.
I am doing this. I'm doing this because I think it is the best thing for our relationship and I really want it to work. And if I have to do this for a few years because my goal is to stay with this person, then I do that. And are there times where I'm going to say, like, oh, I'm so frustrated? Absolutely. However, if you are that person who is constantly taking ownership, you recognize what the goal is. There's a point where, again, that's what you choose and that's what you sit in, right?
Yeah. And that's what we said, right? If you're victim mentality, you're living in victim mentality, it reflects on your relationships.
Mm-hmm. It really does. On all of them,
Yeah.
for sure.
It saturates throughout your whole life.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And I don't really know if I've ever seen anyone who's lived in that who is like the happiest person I've seen
No,
and I want to be around, to be quite honest.
no.
Right?
And I mean, Meredith, victimhood affects you a lot, doesn't it? The life that you lead,
Mm-hmm.
being around somebody who in your personal life has a victim mentality,
Mm-hmm.
that affects you. I've seen you try to make best of the situations.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you learned from that as far as relationships with people who live in victimhood?
Yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned how to take responsibility when there is a level and when there is a level of disrespect that I don't necessarily have to tolerate. And there really isn't an ownership in the reciprocity of the relationship.
Hmm.
I realize that sometimes I might just need to cut something off. And
Mm.
it's sad. You don't want, we want to hang on to things.
Mm.
And I don't think of it, and maybe you can speak to this. Being by myself wasn't necessarily a victim thing either. I didn't live in the victimhood. I just was like, well, this is what I have to do at that time. I didn't necessarily love doing that. It wasn't a great place, but I chose to do that instead of continuing to put myself in situations where I would feel terrible about who I am.
Yeah, having a relationship with somebody who has a victim mentality in my life, personally and professionally, I kind of manage it differently, right? In my personal life, if I don't have to have a relationship with you, meaning you're not a family member or someone who's part of like my everyday life, I will usually remove myself from that
Mm-hmm.
relationship
Mm-hmm.
because the victim mentality, it's so hard to have a relationship with somebody who is just always focused on everyone else's wrongdoings. It's always somebody else's fault. It's really hard to have an authentic relationship with that person. I
And
won't be
how many
rude.
times can we have the same conversation, though?
Right.
Seriously.
And I can't be, I'm not rude. I'm not mean to them, but I don't have a relationship with them. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been purposeful about that because I don't like victim mentality. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. And that's a really hard thing. Listen, I didn't grow up in the easiest of circumstances, but I'm not a byproduct of that. I've
Mm-hmm.
grown past that. And that's exactly what you're saying is movement. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the situation you were in. When I was a child, I was a victim of that, but I don't have a victim mentality because of it. I refuse to.
Mm-hmm.
And so did those things build me? Yeah. Like I learned things from that situation from when I was a child. But I have the perspective of those things. I could look at them and say, oh, look what it did to me. Or I could look at those things and say, look what it did for me.
Yeah.
It really created something. God created this thing in me in whatever area. And so it did some things for me.
I like
And
that, Wendolyn.
it's a perspective shift. And so I can't sit in that. I can't sit in this victim mentality.
Yeah.
And so in my personal life, when you have people who are in victim mentality, and ourselves as well, we can all be there. We just have to recognize it. We have to be aware, and we have to have the people in our lives that love us and say, I've noticed you kind of been in this place lately.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's just because we've been complaining with our mouths and we just haven't allowed ourselves to just stay quiet for a while. Like, just stay quiet for a while. Let's practice silence. Let's practice not speaking these things. You've said it 100 times. There's no point in talking about it again. Let's move. Let's have movement. And so, and in my professional life, I've had clients to where we've talked about, okay, do you want to continue to be in this? We've talked about this. We've talked about it. We've talked about it. We've talked about it. Do you want to stay here? And I need you to be honest with me, because if you want to stay here, there's not much I can do for you.
There isn't. Yeah.
And so then I think this professional relationship is over because I can't help you. But if they say to me, you know what, I want to move forward. Okay, we can work with that. With victim mentality, it's hard not only to take ownership, but sometimes that victimhood has become your companion. It's almost like you protect yourself with it, and you've walked hand in hand with it for so long.
Becomes an identity.
It does. You can walk hand in hand with it and say, nothing's my fault, so I'm not going to hurt. Nothing's my fault, so I don't have to change. And change is hard. And what do we tell people when people say that's hard? What do we say to them, Meredith?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. Because if something isn't difficult and you have to move through it, we take the risk that builds confidence. We're much happier about it on the other side.
Yeah. And it's freedom. So when is freedom never fought for? It's always fought for. So there's a war that's going to happen. There's a battle that's going to happen, and it's going to be hard. If you want freedom, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to fight. And it's not overnight, especially, and this is also what I've noticed. And if you feel like this is you, then just listen up. But people with victim mentality, they go into coaching with me or therapy with Meredith, and they expect you, Meredith and I, to change them.
Oh, yeah.
And if they don't see change in a month or 2 months in their circumstances, not state of mind, not perspective, if they don't see change in their circumstances, they're not happy. They feel like you're not doing anything for them. Well, I can take you to the water, buddy. Here's the stream. Take a drink. I can't drink for you. I can lead you to the water. I can't make you drink.
There are times when it isn't a good, it's not a match that works.
Right.
As you were talking, Wendell, and I was thinking ownership, as we've been stressing here today, yes, is very important. I think forgiveness is also part of that. I also believe that gratitude is part of the healing process of coming from a place of trauma one way or another, because our trauma is how we see something that is traumatic, right?
Yeah.
We do sometimes wear it so much that it has dictated us. And like you said, it's become habitual thinking. We have not found a way to move through it. Maybe we have to forgive a person, which is one of the most difficult things to do. We are finding a different way to love a person. Or when you were talking about growing up, you have a lot of gratitude that you didn't have to live in that for as long as you could have lived in that, because you did have a rescuer. You did have someone who took you out of it and showed you love in a different way, where it transformed your life, right? And you decided to live your life in that way because you recognize the feeling and the joy in that. Do you remember we had a couple that we worked with, and when we were working with one of the spouses, the moment that changed their interaction is when you said, be life-giving. Now, this is a relationship, a marriage over a long period of time where they were really on opposite sides. And there was one session with this idea of be life-giving, and what is that? And
Mm-hmm.
how do we change we're the hurt ones in this relationship and turn it around to say, you know, they have done all of these things that are wrong. They've done all of these things that have treated me, like, have made our relationship the way that it is. But the way that the spouse decided to be life-giving with words, actions, stop bringing up the things that might seem critical, it has transformed the relationship in a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Decided to stop being the person who is, I've been wronged, right? I've been wronged. This is after a significant amount of time where they have lived on opposite sides, where both of them lived in, I've been wronged.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's a sense of forgiveness there. We may not be able to get to that first.
Yeah.
We may not even get to the point of ownership. This might be a simply 1% situation where, okay, life-giving. What does that
Mm-hmm.
mean? Could that make a difference? Let's change a variable and experiment with that.
Yeah.
And guess what? The spouse did. And look at the transformation on
Right.
both parts.
Yeah.
Both.
And I think, and in this case, right, in a lot of cases, Meredith and I will talk to couples and people and say, let's just give gratitude a shot.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Try it on.
Yeah.
Let's try it on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had people message me, right? I've kept them accountable. So this week, I want you to message me all the things that you've expressed gratitude with your partner or whatever the situation is, right? So I need you to tell me how you did that. And so they'll text me, Wendolyn, I expressed gratitude in this way. And it has been such a pivotal moment in their lives where they're like, oh, things are kind of changing, right? Because when you are showing gratitude towards another person too, especially if you're both joining together and doing that,
Mm-hmm.
somehow in that whole thing, when you start expressing gratitude on a regular basis, this becomes
Mm-hmm.
part of your everyday, you stop keeping a record of wrong.
Oh,
It
that's
changes.
that's so huge, right? The
Mm-hmm.
I've been wronged. When
Yeah.
stop keeping the record of wrong. I love that.
Yeah.
What do we say? What's the first step in the 1%? Is the self-awareness.
So, with victim mentality, if you're listening to this, one question I would ask yourself is, do I have victim mentality? And usually people who dismiss it or don't even ask themselves that question, right? Or people who dismiss it very quickly, you might have victim mentality because
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard for you to look at yourself. So that might be a little bit of a indicator of like, oh, I don't even want to look at myself in this, right?
Or when have
So
I? Or when have
yeah,
I, right? Or when do I have victim mentality now? When have I in my life? Because the reflection of you've moved through it at some point, right? If you have that awareness, yeah. Mm-hmm.
so one, ask yourself that question. And so that
Mm-hmm.
1% could be, oh, I'm aware now that I tend to be more on the negative side. It's always someone else's fault. It's never my fault. I don't ever find myself humbling myself to apologize. I don't ever
Mm.
find myself with a repentant spirit. I don't ever find myself remorseful. I find myself pointing. So those are maybe some awareness could be your 1%. And
Yeah.
maybe those who know that they are and you have that awareness and you're just like, I just live like this. If you want out of it, maybe your 1% could be, okay, I'm going to pick a friend and I'm going to text them throughout the week. I'm going to say, listen, I really need to show more gratitude in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to text you when I'm thankful for something or when I've told somebody how grateful I am for them or thanking them for doing something for me. And it is transformative. You would be amazed at how having a thankful spirit changes people. It
It
changes
does.
people and it does
It
keep
does.
you from looking at the record of wrong. And so maybe that's your 1%. And that's a challenge for people who are victim mentality. That is a
Mm-hmm.
huge thing. That's a huge challenge. That's a big 1%, but
It is a big 1%. It
it
is.
is.
I know we've shared many stories. I would like to share this one because I think of chronic illness.
Mm,
There's a lot of chronic illness that we really have no control over. We do the best that we can to manage it. And oftentimes it's very easy to live in the I've been wronged. Why is it me that has this illness? If I would have done this, then I maybe wouldn't be here. If I would have caught this earlier, there's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of shoulds. We tend to get really down on ourselves, or we just, there might be the reality that this is how it's going to be. I work with a wonderful client who unfortunately has dealt with a chronic illness that has come on in the past 2 years. And this client doesn't recognize who they are anymore. And it has been amazing to see the transformation, going to as many doctors and specialists, continuing to look for a way to heal this, but not only doctors, doing therapy, doing what they need to do in order to get to the place closest to the place maybe that they were before, or they liked who they were. And this is a person who has a beautiful job and hobby that fuels them. When you're not able to do that thing anymore, that coping skill, what has fueled you, become a religion to you, has, grown your spirit, and you recognize, okay, well, what can I do now? And maybe this is an opportunity for me to take up knitting. you know, maybe this is a time for me to call people that I haven't really stayed in contact with. How can I bless others? Because I can't really move, right? I have to be still, and I'm not used to being still. So what can I do? Can I learn another language? Right? Can I take an online course? What can I do?
yeah. We're not saying it's easy.
Oh no, but that's not what
No.
this is about.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's simple.
It's
It's
supposed to be
simple.
hard.
It's
And
supposed to
it's
be hard, and it's still simple to
yeah.
make change. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So we've talked about many different areas of life today where you might be experiencing, I am so wronged, right? I don't understand why this thing won't change. What is my part in it? The reflection of what is my part in this situation that I don't like, that I don't feel good about, that's the first place that you start, right? Like Wendolyn was saying, am I living in this I feel wronged or victimhood that I need to do something about? I have options. So the first step, the first percent, self-awareness. You get to choose all the other percents and they add up to transformation. And hopefully one of those is gratitude. And I hope another one is changing your lens and how you see the world or a person or yourself. So choose something. After you evaluate what areas of your life you could be living in this way, think about that. Challenge yourself. You may not have to just accept how it is. You have choices, you have options. So challenge yourself with that. Be encouraged. We're so glad you're here, and we'll see you next time.